everybody, this is Money Mom. Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be talking about post-war World War II, late 1940s, 1950s, all about the economy and what was going on. Let me get right into it. Many of you probably know this, but soldiers, when they came home from World War II, there weren't a lot of jobs available because basically they weren't building cars. So there was a lot of pent-up demand. People had pent-up savings, but there were no products. So that because of all this, there weren't a lot of jobs because the industry had to retool. And so it took a little bit of time. But some of these soldiers were able to have a savings that they could come home to because they had a salary for a year. So some of them, because of a GI Bill, got to go back to school. So there were really good things going on there. Basically, instead of, building tanks, they had to go from building tanks back to building cars. And so that took some time to get all of this together. So that being said, that took some time. But 1950s, which my dad is 83, I know I told you guys this, my dad told me the 1950s was the best decade of his life. He loved it. It was considered the golden age, and people just absolutely loved it. I wrote some of these notes down. Please forgive me if I don't remember everything and I have to look down. The economy grew by 37%. Unemployment rate was 4.5%. The only downside was because of people spending more, because they had all this money to spend, the inflation did go up a little bit, but it was an economic boom and prosperity. Between 45 and 1960s, products more than doubled. People were wanting to buy washing machines and vehicles and homes. All of a sudden there were a lot more homes. It was the baby boom, housing boom, marriage boom. And so a lot was going on in that decade. I mean, I tell you, I would have loved to have grown up in the 1950s. Basically, much more government spending on schools, highways, veteran benefits. From 50 to 70 was considered the golden age of capitalism. So like I mentioned, they also had a lot more houses being built then. And for fun, people love to go to the movies and drive-ins. And I thought it was interesting to look back at the values. And if you didn't fit into the box, that might have been challenging, but religious faith was important. Patriotism was important, and conformity to social norms. And I thought about myself and how I act. I'm not sure how I would get along in the 1950s. So, and also they mentioned that $10,000 in 1950 would be $110,810 in today's dollar. I love looking at those inflation calculators. It's really, really interesting. Many people moved to the suburbs. Now, I thought this was interesting. The average home in 1950 cost $7,354. Eggs cost 60 cents a dozen, which in today's dollars is $6.40 a dozen. Can you imagine paying that much for eggs? Gas was 27 cents a gallon, and the minimum wage was 75 cents an hour. The average salary was $3,000. Now, I looked up the average doctor's salary, and that was like $11,000. It was kind of the golden age of, getting out, going to the drive-in movies, which I love going to drive-in movies. Golden age of television, and these televisions would come out, and then the next year they would come out with even a better one. So people in the 50s were starting to buy TV. Of course, my favorite show, I Love Lucy. So you had music like Elvis, and then you also had the golden age of TV, and it just sounded like a really fun time. I love the clothes. I love the movies from the 40s and the 50s. I love a lot of the music. It just sounds like a wonderful time. Not everybody, however, benefited from this boom. There were some, obviously, groups of folks that were not prosperous during this time. But, I think about it and I thought $3,000, gosh, that is not very much money. I can't imagine only living off that, but I guess I'd have to look and see what everything cost. So that's kind of what I wanted to share about the 1950s. Let me know if you have anything to share about that. What do you know about the 1950s, either from maybe your experience or from maybe your folks or grandparents' experience or other family members? Anything you want to share about the 50s that we could all learn from? I'd love to hear from you. Next week, we'll be talking about the 1960s. I just want to say I appreciate each of you, and I hope you're enjoying this history series. I love you, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye-bye.